France has this very distinct notion about what it means to create an inclusionary society that really comes out of the ideals of the French Revolution, which is that anyone can become French, but they need to accept that what it means to be a French citizen is to be kind of unencumbered in the public sphere. And what could be a hindrance in the public sphere includes things like loyalty to the country from which you came if you're an immigrant, loyalty to an ethno-religious group. So that means that a certain level of integration can only be achieved if you are sort of looking French, speaking French, seeming French like everybody else in public. Now, one of the things I do try to argue in the book is that this was always more rhetoric and myth at a certain level than reality. Particularly during the imperial period, France is sort of necessity a multi-ethnic empire, given how vast its geographical reach is and how diverse it's becoming already in the 20s and 30s. In the case of Jews, in particular, Jews have been thought about as sort of by far the most important ethno-religious minority in modern French history, this kind of test case for French democracy, this way of measuring how inclusive France is at different historical moments. In the case of Muslims, Muslims have largely been located outside of mainland France in what's been written about Muslims in relation to France until thinking about them, toward the end of the 20th century, beginning of the 21st century. And they've been thought about really as colonized subjects, as resistors against colonialism, rather than as people who lived in relatively significant numbers already, a series of different kinds of lives in the mainland from the teens and 20s onward. And so when we put Jews and Muslims together, we get some comparative perspective, but we also see how their relationships with various people in French society, particularly with each other, were really mediated through their understandings of what it meant to be French, who was not French. For some Jews and Muslims, there was a sense of religious proximity because of the fact that both faiths are Abrahamic, they share certain rituals, they had certain common histories in North Africa. For other Jews and Muslims, being religious was by definition almost connected to opposing loyalties in the context of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but there are many contexts in which that alone did not produce tremendous mutual hostility. Consciousness of multi-ethnicity does not by definition mean conflict, does not by definition mean that Jews and Muslims will be unable to coexist. What's taken place most recently in France is not the only case of encounters between Muslims and Jews in France that are happening at this very moment. It's the one that's in the headlines, it's the one that's violent, and it troubles us, and it should trouble us. But it's important to have a longer context, partly simply to realize that a sense of crisis, a sense of deep questions about whether the Republic can adapt is not altogether new.
Moi, je ne veux plus que dans notre pays, il y ait des juifs qui puissent avoir peur. Et je ne veux pas qu'il y ait des musulmans qui aient honte, parce que la République, elle est fraternelle, elle est généreuse, elle est là pour accueillir chacun.